Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. Everyone here in the audience, the National Women's Business Council, everyone over the phone, thank you so much for joining us here today at our public meeting on Capitol Hill. We're very excited to be here. My name is Nina Roque. I'm the Executive Director of the National Women's Business Council. I also serve as the Council's designated federal officer, which means that I serve as the official liaison between the Council members and the agency, the Small Business Administration. I also ensure that the Council is abiding by the many rules and regulations of the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which they are well aware of. As you all know, today's meeting is public. We are on the record. It was noticed on the Federal Register. Copies of all the meeting materials and public comments that we received prior to today, at today's meeting, and at the close of the official record will be made available to the public. We will also prepare the meeting minutes for everyone in the public to review within 90 calendar days. The minutes for our last public meeting are already available on our website, NWBC.gov. We're very excited about today's agenda. First and foremost, we're excited to hear from our Senate partner, Therese Mears. She is counsel to Senator Ben Cardin, who is the ranking member of the Senate Small Business Committee. Thank you, Therese. We're also very excited to hear from Annetta Erdy, and excited that Kevin's here as well. They will be presenting new data, which is always exciting, on women-owned small business employer firms and provide us with an update on the non-employer statistics, which both of those statistics are crucial to the work of the Council and the policy recommendations that the Council makes. We will then hear from our chair, Liz Sarah. She was appointed last August by the President, and she will be providing an update on the Council's external engagement as well as the Council's policy progress throughout this year. And then finally, we will hear presentations from our subcommittee's 3 chairs. They will present the subcommittee's recommendations that they've been developing pretty much over the past 6 months since the Council has been active in subcommittees. The 3 subcommittees are the Subcommittee on Access to Capital, on STEM, and on Rural Women Entrepreneurs. The Council will then discuss the policy recommendations, debate those policy recommendations, and ultimately vote on them. The final recommendations will be made available to the public in its annual report on December 30th that we submit to the President, Congress, and the Small Business Administration. Following the formal agenda, we will have about 20 to 30 minutes for public comment. We're asking that everyone limit their public comments to about 4 minutes. We have, this was noticed on the Federal Register, so I know there's 4 of you that have already requested that time, so we will make sure to notice those 4 first. So with that being said, I'd like to take official roll so we can get this meeting started. Chair Liz Sarah. Present. Nicole Coburn. Present. Rebecca Contreras. Present. Vanessa Dawson. Pam Eason. I know she's on the phone. I don't know if she can respond, but she's on the phone. Marsha Firestone. Jessica Flynn. Present. Rebecca Hamilton. Barb Smith McCullough. Present. Bonnie Navarra. Present. Sandra Robert. Present. Mary Grace Sexton. Here. Shalonda Stokes. Present. And Monica Stinchula. Present. A quorum has been established and this meeting is officially begun. So with that, I'd like to introduce our council member, Shalonda Stokes. Shalonda was nominated by Senator Ben Cardin. She was officially appointed on the council in February of this year. She's a small business owner from Maryland and a very active member of the council's STEM subcommittee.
Thank you, Nina, and welcome everybody. This is an exciting day for us, like many of the others. As Nina mentioned, I am a small business owner. I am a recovering engineer with an engineering degree from Morgan State University, which is located in Baltimore, Maryland. My company is actually headquartered in Baltimore, Maryland as well. I'm honored to take part in the National Women's Business Council for so many reasons, but I know that as we all look to grow these organizations, We want to understand the why. We want to understand with the gap, how we get there, and what we can do to support that. And so I'm honored to take part. So thank you for having me. I do have the pleasure of introducing somebody today. I was nominated to the council by Senator Ben Cardin, and Senator Cardin really is known for and has a focus on representing underserved small businesses, particularly women, minorities, and veterans. And he couldn't be here with us today, but we do have a wonderful, wonderful support in the Senators Council, Therese Mears. In her role, she advises on small business, contracting with the federal government, cybersecurity, and entrepreneurial development programs. Prior to joining that, though, and this is a part of where our heart goes in, Therese was successfully launched and sold Viking yogurt across the United States and was named an entrepreneur to watch by Food Navigator magazine. She has a BA in art history from Duke University and a JD from Harvard Law School. Please join me in welcoming Therese Mears.
Thank you, Shalonda, for the warm introduction, and thank you, NWBC and Liz Sarah, for the opportunity to update the council and all the great work Senator Cardin has been doing for small business and entrepreneurship. NWBC does important work. You're traveling the country, initiating the Women in Small Business Roundtable series to understand the challenges and opportunities for women's entrepreneurship. You are our nonpartisan voice for policies affecting women's entrepreneurship. I serve as counsel to Ranking Member Ben Cardin, Maryland, and work on small business contracting with the federal government and SBA entrepreneurial development programs. I not only serve as counsel to the SBC for Senator Cardin, but I'm also speaking to you this morning as a former CEO of my own woman-owned manufacturing company. I believe I'm the only one on the Senate Small Business Committee staff who has run a small business, gone through the process of third-party certification, both as a woman-owned WASB and minority-owned Hispanic small business supplier to federal contractors. At Dairy, we supply corporate cafeterias and federal contractors, along with grocery and e-commerce, with high-protein, low-sugar yogurt. At the peak of our sales, we manufactured more than 216,000 cups of yogurt per run, with trucks leaving from 11 warehouses around the country to fill over 700 stores, coast to coast. I understand firsthand what it is to build a company from the ground up, fostering its growth, the thrill of chasing a deal and winning, the heartache of missteps, and the frustration of navigating a complex marketplace. Working for Senator Cardin, I have experienced his passion for small business. He requested his seat on the Small Business Committee back in 2007 because he wanted to make sure that small businesses in Maryland and across the country were receiving the support they need from Washington. Maryland has the highest average number of minority-owned businesses in the country. In fact, 6 of the top U.S. 10 cities with the greatest average number of minority women-owned businesses are in Maryland. I thought my update should focus on what we're doing in the Senate with our friends, both in the majority and over at SBA, to help small businesses grow through procurement and entrepreneurial development and lending. Along with NWBC, the Women's Business Ownership Act of 1988 authorized the Women's Business Center program. Unlike SBA's other resource partners, WBCs meet the needs of women and their communities by providing services in multiple languages, offering flexible hours, including weekends and evenings, and allowing children to attend training classes with their mothers. It is the only program in the Small Business Act dedicated to serving economically and socially disadvantaged women. Senator Cardin supports the reauthorization of our women's business centers, lifting the funding per cap per center, and working to get a much-needed WBC in Baltimore.
He also supports an accreditation process for the NWBCs. WASB certification is an issue dear to me because I used to be one. My third-party WASB certification through WeBank is what helped me get my intro meetings in front of our nation's largest retailers like Kroger, Safeway, and H-E-B, as well as federal contractors. But it was the quality of our price and our product that would nail the sale. Congress brought significant changes to the WASB program in the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2015. Some of these changes include giving sole source awards, removing the ability for small businesses to self-certify as renowned, and allowing SBA to create its own certification process for these types of businesses. We are continuing to work with our Chairman Rubio to reauthorize the Small Business Act and bring much needed improvements to these SBA tools, such as creating a centralized certification office at the SBA for businesses wishing to participate in prime contracting programs. In July, Senator Cardin introduced the Closing the Credit Gap Act, S2361, to increase access to small dollar loans for borrowers in underserved markets, including women, veterans, and minorities, by providing the SBA with permanent authority to partner with mission-oriented, nonprofit lenders to deliver capital through the 7A loan program. The legislation builds on the demonstrated success of the 7A Community Advantage CA pilot program that was established in 2011 to finance and support small businesses that were underserved by SBA's 7A loan program and traditional lenders. This bill provides certainty for borrowers and lenders by making the Community Advantage pilot permanent, building on lessons learned over the past 8 years. Nearly 40 groups and lenders endorsed the Closing the Credit Gap Act. Senator Cardin often hears from small businesses who are frustrated because they quickly grow out of the small business programs, but are not able to compete with the behemoths of prime contracts. He recently pushed for the passage of the Runway Extension Act, which was signed into law in December 2018, that will use the average of 5 years of annual gross receipts instead of 3 years to calculate the size of a small business. The runway extension is currently in SBA's final rulemaking phase, with the process to be expected to be completed by the end of the year. The Senate's National Defense Authorization Act for Fiscal Year 2015 bill included Senator Cardin's amendment directing the Department of Defense to make payments to small business primes and large prime contractors or small business subcontractors within 15 days of receiving an invoice. This language became law in the final fiscal year 19 NDAA. And now we are working to extend prompt payment from the Department of Defense throughout all the agencies in the federal government. At the Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, we will continue to develop policies and programs that will stimulate entrepreneurial development, contracting programs, and lending for women businesses. We are excited to hear the policy recommendations on rural women's entrepreneurship, STEM, and access to capital. Thank you.
Thank you, Therese.
And before I skip this over in my notes, I really want to thank Chairman Rubio and his staff, Maggie and Sam, for being here and for helping us with the room reservation. So thank you to them as well. Thank you. So our next guest has a very long title, but I will try my best. Annetta Erdy is the Assistant Division Chief for the Government and Business Owners Programs at the U.S. Census Bureau. She has been engaging with the council for a number of years. She oversees multiple surveys and programs at the U.S. Census Bureau, including the annual business survey and the non-employers by demographic statistics, which are two surveys that we look forward to hearing on today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Annetta Erdi. As Nina mentioned, I work at the U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm
Assistant Division Chief for Governments and Business Owners Program. I'm here to talk about our new and exciting survey, annual business survey. I also wanted to mention a little bit about our new program, Non-Employer Statistics by Demographics program. And I'm hoping that by the end of this presentation, everybody will have a good idea of what happened with the previous SBO survey of business owners and where we're going in the future with those two programs. I had slides. I don't know if we're going to have them up there or not. Okay, next slide. So on September 12th, ABS released its inaugural data product, including number of minority, women, Hispanic, and veteran-owned businesses. In 2000, and this is for employer businesses only. In 2017, there were 1.1 million women-owned employer businesses in the U.S. For those who perhaps don't follow these as closely, here's how this data compares with our previous data we have published. So again, there were 1.1 million women-owned employer businesses in 2017 as measured by the ABS, or Annual Business Survey. There were 1 million women-owned employer businesses in 2012 as measured by our previous SBO survey, and over 900,000 women-owned employer businesses in 2007. This is our graphical representation of how we are transitioning the production of total ownership, business ownership, from our 5-year program to annual data products for both employer and non-employers. So the top box, the green box, represent our legacy SBO, or the Survey of Business Owners. And it represents really how we used to do business. It was all survey-based and was available every 5 years. Last SBO collection was for 2012, and the previous one was for 2007 survey year. So we heard very closely for groups like yours that this data was not frequent enough. So we have decided to approach the two components of the previous SBO, the employer component and the non-employer component, separately to produce this data on a more frequent basis. The SBO non-employers part became non-employer statistics by demographics, or NSD, and the SBO employers became part of the annual business survey, or ABS. I will briefly first talk about the ABS and then about NSD. Here's a quick summary of differences between the new ABS and our legacy SBO. If you notice sample sizes here, the ABS sample size is significantly smaller, 850,000 employer businesses versus 1.75 million employer and non-employer businesses from the SBO. And this is because for the non-employers itself, we actually are able to reuse administrative data to produce this product instead of collecting that data directly. And we think that by doing this, we can have more accurate data for the non-employers and also decrease the burden on smaller businesses tremendously. And for those of you guys who think that we might be losing information in future collection, we actually aren't. We are going to collect more information on the ABS because we have designed the survey in such a way we are able to capture that information. So let me give you a little bit more information first about the ABS, about our new survey. So ABS is conducted by the Census Bureau and sponsored by National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, NCSES, within the National Science Foundation. It's being fielded as mandatory survey under Title 13 for every year for 5 years, starting with 2017 survey year to 2021. And ABS has replaced 3 existing Census Bureau surveys: SBO, ASC, what we call Verdi M,
Micro businesses here stands for small businesses with deployment from 1 to 9. And it also replaces an innovation sector of our BIRDie survey, which is Business Research and Development and Innovation Survey, which innovation moves now over to ABS. We are mostly reusing content from the previous survey, but we also have developed new content with NCSES. The ABS will continue to ask a question on owners' race, sex, ethnicity, and military status. This is carried over from SBO and ASE. The ABS will continue to ask questions about research and development from small companies, 1 to 9 employees from BIRDie M. But we also have designed ABS in such a way that we could introduce new topics to make the survey more relevant, more current. The new content that we are covering in the next couple of years is innovation activities as well as technology. We will maintain the core content each year, and ABS, to the extent possible, will also use administrative data from other collections, such as payroll or industry classification. As I mentioned, we just released our inaugural release. It was fairly high level, but we will produce additional details on a flow basis starting in December 2019, and we are hoping to complete all releases at the detailed geography and names by July 2020. We carried some of the information, like I mentioned, from previous surveys, such as Years in Business, which was first introduced as part of the ASE. We are almost done finalizing our publication plans. We don't have it still on our website, but our current expectations are based on what we've been able to produce from the previous surveys that ABS replaces. And obviously, our goal is to publish as much detail as possible without losing the quality of the data. So that was ABS. Let me quickly go through our new program, which is non-employer demographic program. The non-employers will not be collected on the ABS, but Census Bureau has access to administrative data, and we will use those administrative data to produce demographic data for all companies without employees. So what it means, in the past, we have surveyed about 1 million non-employer firms from the SBO, and we mail them. By using this approach of administrative data, we can actually assign the demographic characteristics to the full universe of non-employers of over 25 million non-employers. And this will result in production of annual non-employer statistics by business demographics. This new approach obviously reduces respondent burden and cost and increases data quality. And it will allow us to produce these estimates annually. This is a big change from the SBO, but together with the collection of the employer businesses from the ABS and non-employer businesses through this administrative records approach will provide a complete picture of business ownership. NSD is still in the research phase. This past January, we released research working paper with our initial model for 2015 reference year. But it was, like I mentioned, this was just a research. We are updating our methodology, and we are working on additional quality assessment. This December, we will publish updated methodology report for 3 reference years, 2014, 2015, and 2016. And the official 2017 non-employers will be published next year. Historically, SBO released with a 3-year lag. So we are staying on the SBO schedule just for the initial 2017 release. But obviously, the goal is to reduce this lag, and this will be possible because we don't have to collect this data, we don't have to edit this data, we don't have to process this data. It's readily available for us to tabulate.
So in summary, I just wanted to point this one more time that we are planning to bringing those two pieces together, the non-employers from the NSD program and the employer from the annual business survey, to produce a total business ownership, but on the annual basis as opposed to every 5 years like we've done it in the past. Just few next steps. Like I mentioned, we are in the process of moving these programs from 5 years to 1 year. So for 2017, we most likely will release them separately. There will be a separate release of non-employers by demographics and a separate release of employer by demographics. In the next couple of years, our goal is to put them back together. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So next, I'm excited to welcome Liz Sarah, Chair of the Council. She has over 30 years of experience as a small business owner, an angel investor, and a marketing professor.
Thank you, Nina, and thank you all for being part of our meeting today. I'd like to just point out a few people in particular that I'm really delighted were able to take the time out of their schedule to be here. Natalie Young, one of the senior executives at the global consulting firm Deloitte. Her division and her team work with startups up and down the East Coast, so we're really happy to have you part of our conversation. Giselle Stoltz, who is one of the senior executives at the George Mason Entrepreneurship Center. Anna Mason, who runs the Rise of the Rest for the Steve Case Revolution, the big initiative to try to get startups in all parts of the country, not just the big cities on the coast, to engage in entrepreneurism and impact in their community. Kathy McShane, formerly of SBA's Women-Owned Small Business Division, doing other important things at SBA. Glad that you could be with us today. So many of you probably have not heard of the National Women's Business Council. I surely didn't until about a year before I was asked to take over the chairmanship. And so I think it's important for all of us in the room to know what all of us here at the front are actually doing on behalf of women entrepreneurs and women business owners. So it's actually a federal advisory commission. Those of us in the private sector like to think of it as a small agency where we don't have programs, but our sole mission is to provide advice to Congress, to the White House, to the Small Business Administration, and to different agencies on what things they can do to help more women start more businesses, or help women that already have done that grow those businesses. So I'm very delighted to hear from the Census Bureau that the number of women-owned businesses is at 1.1 million, which is fantastic. We'd like to see that grow a lot more rapidly, and hopefully some of the things that all of you are doing in your respective roles, and some of the things that we're doing up here in terms of what our advocacy recommendations will be, will help make that a speedier increase. So just to kind of put that number in perspective, it wasn't until sometime in the mid-1970s that women business owners were even counted for the very first time. And it was because of a very simple question that the Census Bureau added to that survey, which was, what's your gender? And are you 51% male-owned, 51% female-owned? And back then, in the mid-70s, women-owned businesses comprised only about 4.6% of all businesses in the country. When we look at recent numbers, women-owned businesses now comprise about 40%. So that's a tremendous increase. We're very excited about that. But when we look at that 40%, which is something in the area of about 12 million total businesses, 90% of those are one-person companies. So as the council is looking at where are we going to focus our time and our energy and our resources, it's how do we help those one-person organizations get to hire the next person, the next 4 people, the next 8 people? How do we help them grow for those that are trying to increase their revenue, their impact, their role in their community. When we look at the kinds of things that the council is engaged in, it harkens back to how did we even get established in the first place? So 30 years ago, President Reagan signed legislation that created this body. And at that very same time, that same piece of legislation did away with a very onerous requirement on women business owners. And it had to do with those that were looking to get a business loan. So back in 1988, if you needed a commercial business loan as a woman-owned business to do whatever you needed to do for your company, you needed to get a male relative to sign or co-sign that loan. 1988, looking around the room, I know there were a lot of you like me that were in the business world back then. That was absolutely crazy. So the council was really charged with the mission of what are the things out there that are holding women business owners back? And those are the kinds of things that over the ensuing decades, the council has been very instrumental in making recommendations to Congress or other agencies to do away with things that were unnecessarily becoming impeding forces and recommending things that will help speed the opportunity for women to start more companies or grow the ones that they already have. So as a former entrepreneur, I don't think anyone can ever be a former entrepreneur. I think you're that like for life. And in the work that I've been doing for the last 20 years with startup companies in the area, one of the biggest challenges for all business owners in the early days is getting the capital to get that company off the ground and get it to the next stage. So access to capital is one of the key pillars of what this council is charged with trying to address over the next couple of years. All of us are in place for a 3-year term, and the council is made up of business owners as well as presidents of women's business organizations. And everyone is going to introduce themselves in just a moment. And in looking at the makeup of our council, I was looking for women that represented a diversity of the businesses that they started and are operating, as well as the organizations that represented a diversity of subjects that women in business fall into. And we have a combination of broad horizontal organizations, such as the Women Presidents Organization, and then we have some very niche organizations, such as the Veneta Project, which focuses on women's startups in technology, as well as the Association for Women in Science. How do we get more women in science, technology, engineering, construction-related professions, not just many of the typical ones that we tend to see in brick-and-mortar locations. So the council is all volunteer. This is sort of our side hustle. We all have day jobs that we try to keep going and growing as women business owners. And the council consists of 5 full-time staff members. Nina as the executive director, Tamarin, who has been taking pictures and tweeting in the back, Ashley Judah, who's our legislative assistant, and we have 2 new members that just joined this week, Anna and Sandra, focusing on policy and operations. So the full-time team keeps all of the activities of the council going. So one of the, I think, important roles of the council in making our recommendations is twofold. One, Congress needs to know who we are in the very first place. And I think raising the visibility of what our mission is and our role to the members of Congress has been an important objective for this first year in our sort of term, if you will. And it's going to continue to be an important role for the next couple of years. We want to make sure we are in front of all of the members of the Small Business Committee on the House and Senate side, the majority and the minority. And we want to make sure that we're talking to all of the members that are on important subcommittees that are potentially impacting the kinds of recommendations that we're looking to make in some of the very specific committee areas that you'll hear about shortly. The beauty about the council in a lot of ways is that it's very nonpartisan. So the women business owners have to represent both sides of the aisle. And I think this is one of the issues, maybe the only issue, that as we go up to the Hill and have meetings with various members and their team, that people are actually like, oh, you're the ones that are supporting women in business, come on in the door. It's one of those only issues I feel that everyone can agree on is a very positive thing for the economy, for job creation, and for just, overall economic impact, in our society. So unlike a lot of the other political issues, which we don't need to deal with, we get a very warm welcome, and I'm very hopeful that the recommendations you're going to hear about will be very well received as we make them over the coming months. So we're really delighted to have so many of you here today to hear about what our focus is going to be. And just to briefly give you an introduction to that. As an entrepreneur, as I mentioned, the access to capital was a major issue for most startups, and mine included. So in the early 90s, when I co-founded 2 software companies, that was our big challenge. Where do we get funding in order to grow the company, hire the people we needed to, and get that company to the next stage? So access to capital is very, very important for startups of all flavors. The second issue that we're tackling as a council is the whole issue of women in STEM. And if we look at the kinds of industries that most women-owned businesses are in, they don't tend to be in STEM-related areas. Those kinds of companies represent single digits as a percentage of the whole pie. And those are the kinds of companies that are getting venture capital. Those of us in this region that have been working with startups know that of the several billions of dollars last year in venture capital dollars that were awarded, 100% of those dollars went to technology-based companies. Why? They have great multiplier effects, and they can garner great, huge returns for those investors. And so we want women-owned businesses to get their share of those kinds of companies, investments, and in order to do that, we need more women to start those kinds of companies that are venture investable. If we look at the numbers of women-owned technology companies last year, it only amounted to about 5% of the total. So unless we can encourage and find what are the motivating forces that will help more women believe that they can start a STEM-related business or in technology or engineering without those backgrounds, then we're not going to be moving the needle and helping them get those dollars to compete with male-owned businesses and drive their own company's success. So STEM-related opportunities are one of the big areas that we're looking at. The third area we're looking at and have a set of recommendations that you'll hear about is how do we help women in rural communities? Because they don't have the kinds of resources that we have in big cities like DC. They don't have the incubators. They don't have 6 universities within driving or Uber distance from each other the way we do in DC. They don't have advisor networks. They don't have private sector shared work establishments like WeWork and Make Offices and so many of the other accelerators that we take for granted. I mean, in DC, you can literally walk to about 4 different accelerators or organizations that are private sector based that are all in place just to help entrepreneurs. So if geography is a real deterrent to starting companies and getting the support that they need to get it to the next step, what are the things that we can do that will supplant physical geography to still give them the resources they need? And so a lot of what you're going to hear will be some of the solutions that we think will work. And a lot of our effort in both rural STEM and access to capital recommendation both come from our own personal experience as business owners and people working with business owners in our own communities, as well as the roundtables that we've been holding. So every month this year and continuing into next year, we've devoted a roundtable in a different part of the country with both the women business owners in that geography, as well as the ecosystem stakeholders. So if it was a roundtable on capital access issues, we made sure we included venture capital firms and banks and angel investors and other financial support service providers. We just did an access to capital roundtable in Los Angeles last week. We've done roundtables in Pella, Iowa, in New York City, in Baltimore, in Austin, Texas, and in St. Petersburg. And next year we will continue that whole series with roundtables in Boise, Idaho. Idaho, I'm sorry. This New York City girl got confused as a two, sorry about that. We'll go to New Hampshire, we'll go to other regions of the country that we haven't visited yet. So we're trying to touch more, not just women business owners or potential women business owners, but the ecosystem partners, whether they're government, whether they're local government and economic development offices, whether they're entrepreneurship centers at colleges and universities, and whether they're government agencies that might have local regional offices, whether it's SBA, Commerce, USDA, etc. And so the combination of those on-the-ground meetings with the partners and ultimately the direct beneficiaries of what we're doing will help raise the visibility of the council in the marketplace and then the council on the Hill, so that when the time comes for us to knock on the door and say, hey, we think USDA should be doing this or Commerce should be doing that, they actually know who we are before we get there, so that there is some, credence and some validity to what we're bringing to the table. So I wish that you will all look at today as the start of your dialogue and intersection with the council. Please tell your colleagues, your friends, your business associates and your business partners who we are and what we do. Please follow the council on social media so that you can be kept apprised of where we are around the country, what we're doing, what we're recommending, because we always need and want your feedback and your input. You can follow us on Twitter. It's at NWBC. Our website is nwbc.gov. We have pages on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Please follow me. I'm on LinkedIn, Liz Sarah. I'm on Twitter, at Liz Sarah PR. And when the council is putting out social media information, retweet it, share it, send it around. Because the more that we can represent what's important to you and get your feedback, the better job we'll do, and the more successful we'll all be together. So with that, I'd like to, before we announce our first subcommittee report, I'd like to have our board introduce themselves, and then I'll introduce our first subcommittee chair. So Mary Grace, please start.
I'm Mary Grace Sexton. I'm the CEO and founder of Natalie's Juice Company.
Good morning, my name is Nicole Kober, and I am the Principal Managing Partner of Kober, Johnson & Romney. We are a legal and business consulting firm based in Washington, D.C.
Hello everyone, Vanessa Dawson, founder of the Vanetta Project, which is a national platform to support female entrepreneurs in accessing capital.
Good morning, I'm Bonnie Nawara. I'm CEO of the Women's Business Center, GROW, in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Good morning, my name is Barb McCullough. I'm from Pella, Iowa, and I have a broadband company called KLK Construction. Thank you.
Good morning, Sandy Robert from Detroit, Michigan. I'm the CEO of Association for Women in Science here in DC.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Hamilton. I'm the co-CEO of the WS Badger Company. I run the company with my sister and my mother. And we manufacture organic skincare products in sunscreen out of New Hampshire.
I'm Marcia Firestone. I'm the president and founder of the Women Presidents Organization for women whose revenues exceed $1 million, and we are a peer advisory group for women. We're an educational business organization.
Hello again, I'm Shalonda Stokes. I'm the CEO of Rainbow Entertainment. We're a media company for more than 20 years located in Baltimore, Maryland.
Good morning. I'm Monica Stinjola from St. Petersburg, Florida. I have a health information technology company called Reunion Care. We work with home-based caregiving and the shortage of labor that we have when it comes to caregiving. It's nice to be with you.
I'm Jess Flynn, founder and CEO of Red Sky, which is a public relations and marketing agency in Boise, Idaho.
Good morning, I'm Rebecca Contreras. I'm from the best place to live in Texas, in Austin. And I run a consulting firm here in the district, so I commute like a crazy woman. And I'm thrilled to be here.
And with that, I will turn it over to Rebecca now, who will talk about her committee's work and recommendations as it relates to this very key topic.
Thank you.
Try to make this robust, and maybe everybody should just stand up and stretch so we don't fall asleep. Well, very good. So we're thrilled to be here. My colleagues are Nick Colbert, who you met earlier, Vanessa Dawson, and then I think we have Pam on the phone. We have been busy at work. Just to preface our recommendations and the depth around our organization. So we've been a subcommittee for a whopping 7 months. We've met a handful of times, and I have personally participated in 3 of the roundtables that we hosted in Pella, Iowa, Austin, Texas, which I hosted, and Vanessa hosted one in LA. And we have been very focused around hearing and listening not only to women in business, but women that are investing, associations that are helping women get more capital. And we're also really meeting with SBA to understand their rulemaking. I happen to be a WASB certified government contractor, so I've lived the pain of being a WASB for many, many years. Have a lot of insight around that. So we really wanted to hone in on where we're going to make the most impact as a committee. We know that we only met partially this year. We're going to do a drill down in FY20. But we really wanted to kind of lead with maybe 2 or 3 really key recommendations where we believe, based on the listening sessions, we can make the most impact. So that is kind of the preface for where we are. We are very excited about coming forward in December when we issue our report to Congress and the President with 3 key recommendations, all of which are quite substantial. The first one in particular, I'm going to speak to the first 2 actually, and then I will bring Vanessa up to talk about the third one, and then I'll close it out. But we are going to be leading, as you all know, and many of you in the room, I'm thrilled to hear that you all have been champions on the Hill around this WASB Women-Owned Small Business certification process. And the 5-year Runway Extension Act. And so we are making 8 recommendations to SBA, the President, and Congress around the WASB program, specific to the rulemaking. As you all know, this applies to the way that the women-owned small businesses are certified that want to do business with the federal government. Even though we are the fastest growing demographic in the U.S., we do not get a lot of the federal government contracting, and it's really a needle that we're trying to move forward to make sure that not only we increase the percentages of women doing business with the federal government. Right now there's only 11,000 in the WASB repository, which SBA manages, which to me is a dismal, and to our colleagues is a little bit of a dismal picture. But we'd like to get more women in that process and get them through quicker and faster, more efficient, while at the same time ensuring that we don't have any fraud, and making sure we cover that needle. But we believe that we can do it better, more efficient, and have some recommendations around how to do that. Not only do we want to get more people certified through the WASB program, but we want to market and educate women that are out there how to do business with the federal government, and then encourage them to do do that, because as I travel the country and have been in federal procurement, I'm a former Govy executive, came out of a 15-year career in government, and then I started my company. Many years ago, as I traveled the country into today, I hear, how do I even do business with the federal government? It's a big 800-pound gorilla that I don't even know how to tackle. And I always say, you start a step at a time, little by little, and just lots of education and marketing. So we have been really focusing on how to increase the capacity for those women-owned businesses that can do more business with the federal government that are already there, and getting more women into the process. So we are leading with 8 recommendations. Under this particular rulemaking, or under the certification process, we believe that SBA should limit its role to the certification process. SBA does a lot of things great, and they're really, beneficial in so many areas. But there are associations and entities that this is their core business, and they do it better, faster, more efficient, and they also have, based on the research we've seen, they have a low percentage of fraud rate that they find, because they actually do this for a living. So we are asking SBA to consider limiting its role in the third-party certification process. In meeting with SBA, we found that they're a tiny staff. They don't have the infrastructure. They're really trying to figure out how they're going to even manage doing the certification. And I know, Kathy, you've been involved in that process, so you know the limited resources exist. But there are associations out there that can do it better. It's their core mission, so we're going to recommend that. We also are going to, we believe that if there is any resources to be had within the Small Business Administration, we should really focus on education and marketing to get more women in business that understand what SBA does and the good work that SBA does for women in business, and educate them more. In meeting with literally hundreds of contractors over the last 10 years as the WASB certified company, oftentimes I hear, well, I don't want to use the WASB program. And so we have found, and the data shows through SBA, that a lot of the COs don't know about the WASB program. They feel like, it's too high risk and they're not using it. And so we really are encouraging SBA to really use its great pulpit to really educate the contracting officer community to use this program more efficiently, and make sure that there are more set aside for women-owned small businesses, and they're actually getting the contracts. Right now, within those 11,000 that are in the WASB program, only 0.16% of federal government contracting dollars go to those certified WASBs. Now, all over, women-owned small business are getting about 4.75% of the federal government contracting, but we believe that number should be significantly higher. And we think, given that the federal government is the leading procurement entity, it's just a great opportunity for us as a council to support ensuring that the government does more in terms of setting aside women-owned small business contracts. The other thing that we're recommending as it relates to the women-owned small business and the economically women-owned small business program, we are recommending that threshold. Currently, if you there's a net threshold of $350,000. So if you're worth more than $350,000, you cannot qualify for the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business program. We're recommending that threshold be raised to $750,000, and that would be adjusting the threshold in terms of ensuring that you qualify for that program. We also are recommending that SBA modernize some of its systems and documentation and the way they actually go through and the repository for women-owned small business. As a women-owned small business who has lived with this process, it's very onerous, it's very painful. It takes me thousands of dollars and lots of paper to actually meet a lot of those rules. And we believe there's a way to streamline that process and to ensure that it's not an onerous process for SBA to implement for women-owned small businesses that might be a one-person shop and might not have the resources to have to go through all of the documentation that's required. We're also suggesting a 1-year buffer for the agency to work through the influx of applications, and that will ensure that the agency can actually work through all those people pending. We heard from women-owned small businesses, and I know one of my colleagues in particular has also gone through this process. It takes sometimes upwards of 90 months and months to get certified. We believe that a 30 to 45 day time frame is fair enough in determining the certification. And hearing from some of the associations that do this as their core business, they actually that's their timeline and they do it very efficiently. So we think that again, if it's a 35 to 45 day process, then women are going to get in faster, they're going to get certified, and they're going to be able to start marketing their businesses. There's several other kind of miscellaneous recommendations we're making. You'll see them in the report that's issued in December. But the bottom line here around this particular rule is we really believe that it's an opportunity for SBA and for the Congress to support what SBA is doing to really streamline this program and really make a difference for women-owned businesses. The second recommendation that we are going to be leading with is, for those of you on the Hill, you know this, the President signed into law a bill that Congress passed changing the Runway Act from 3-year to 5-year. That bill was signed into law in December of 2018. Although SBA has been in the rulemaking for the last year, we really believe that SBA should come out of rulemaking and issue the rule and implement the law. There are a lot of women-owned businesses that are really going to be impacted by this. This is a big deal for those of you who don't know what this means. It basically means that if you're currently a women-owned business doing business with the federal government and you're certified, if you in the particular codes within the core of your business, there's a system called NAICS codes. If you meet a threshold for 3 years and you exceed your NAICS code, then they kick you out of the program and you can no longer compete. So as an example, one of my NAICS codes is IT. My threshold is 27 million. If I exceed 27 million, then I'm kicked out of the program, and all of a sudden now I have to compete against a $50 billion company. And so what we're saying is that businesses that exceed 12 to 15 to 18 to 27 million, whatever that particular threshold is, they should be allowed to stay in the program longer so that they can grow their businesses before they have to compete with the big companies, the Deloittes of the world, the IBMs of the world. And as I travel the country and hear from women-owned businesses all over the country, we hear often, gosh, it would be great, if I could really stay in the small business program, because if I'm a $15 million company, it doesn't mean that I can compete with, someone who's several billion. So the 5-year Runway Extension Act not only benefits women-owned small business, it benefits small business. So anybody that is a small business with the federal government, which is a huge number, would be able to stay in the program longer. So we are going to be leading with that recommendation. Obviously, it's already something that SBA is looking at, and we're hoping that they will actually implement what Congress and the President signed into law no later than December of this year. So with that, I'm going to call Vanessa up. She's going to talk about our Angel Tax Credit proposal.
All right, so access to capital covers a number of different domains, and in particular, what we also want to focus on is equity investment access to capital and how it relates to angel investment tax credits. So according to the Angel Capital Association, nearly 30 states across the country have currently implemented state tax credits for angel investors. And these credits do vary from state to state right now, but what has been seen across the board is that they are tremendously successful in spurring economic incentives. So it's been a really successful kind of driver for early investment in these companies. I think that while the gender pay gaps have been keenly addressed in the media, the inequalities that exist for female entrepreneurs in accessing capital at these early stages have not really been widely known. So according to data from PitchBook, female founders only received 2.2%, which is 2.8 billion of 130 billion that went to venture-backable companies in 2018. So that number is very low, and we want to work on that, hopefully by spurring angel investments in women-owned companies at the federal level versus just a state-by-state level. So our recommendation here is going to be a simple one for this year. We really feel that Congress should amend the Internal Revenue Code to allow tax credits for new businesses under the following circumstances. So the business has to be headquartered in the United States. They have gross revenues less than 1 million. They employ fewer than 25 full-time employees. They've been in existence for less than 7 years at the date of investment, and more than 50% of employees are performing their duties substantially in the United States. And most critically, they should be 51% owned by a woman. So we really think that this will have a great impact not only on encouraging more women to also become angel investors, as there's an incentive to start looking at that investment strategy, but there's a great correlation between access to capital at these early stages and business growth. So we really want to be working to spur that at the political policy level.
Thank you, Vanessa. One other thing we'll mention is we found that Maryland and other states are already doing this. So we'd like to tack on to whatever it is they're doing and expand it across the country. So the last recommendation we're going to leave with for FY19 is going to be the expansion of women minority equity investment. I know Senator Rubo's office has been co-sponsoring this. This is an act that was in the President's 2017 tax reform bill through opportunity zones. Through the Women Minority Investment Act. This legislation is really important to us as women-owned businesses. First of all, it's bipartisan, which is great, but it also allows women-owned businesses that are 51% owned to actually get more capital without being capped. Right now, there are a lot of restrictions within the federal women-owned small business program that if you, and I know when I was starting my company, I bootstrapped it, but at some point in my growth, I wanted to get capital by somebody who was not a woman, and I couldn't do that. And so this really expands the opportunity for women-owned small business that are in the program to actually get outside capital investment and doesn't penalize them. So it's a really exciting piece of legislation, and we're really hopeful that that will pass and have, I know it does have bipartisan support right now. So those are going to be our three sort of leading recommendations for this December. I do want to bring my colleague up, Nicole, who's going to talk to you about our FY20 focus. There'll be two things that we're going to focus on for FY20 to drill down. One of which is going to be to find a way again to move the needle in the federal government procurement process to expand more women-owned business to know about the program and get in the program and also market. And then the other one is something I'll let Nicole talk to you about.
Good morning again, everyone. As you know, access to capital is one of the council's top priorities, and we were recently abreast or educated on the opportunity zones. Does anyone in the room know about opportunity zones? All right. Wonderful. So in 2020, that will be the council's focus, and I'll give you just an overview of it. It is considered one of the most exciting developments for investors in recent memories. The opportunity zones establish new connection between private capital and low-income communities across the United States. Specifically, I'll give you just some of the ways that investors can take advantage. It defers taxes on capital gains reinvested in qualified opportunity zone funds until 2026. Now, how does that relate to women in business? I think the focus has obviously been for developments within these opportunity zones, but there's also a second strand, and investors can also invest in businesses. So what the council is going to seek to do is get more information and really try to shape the narrative and come out in front, because the businesses that are in those areas are ripe for investment in funds. And I was so happy to talk just briefly before we started to Jennifer Haymaker. She's the VP of the Maryland Technology Development Corporation. And she said one example very close to us is in Maryland. She knows of an investor that created a $30 million fund in the culinary industry. And this person was uprooted from California to come and do investment in opportunity zones in West Baltimore. So I think that that is right to help get and shape the narrative, let people know about this. A lot of this is the education piece. I think the council can educate women in business in these opportunity zones and connect them with our angel investors, our private equity, get these two parties to meet and see how we can do business and get more access to funds in women-owned business. And we're really excited to take the lead on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So we're very excited about the opportunity we have, and we see it as a window of opportunity to do our part. So I would encourage you again, as Liz said, to follow the council, retweet what we're doing, and also when our report does come up in December, there'll be a section obviously for all the subcommittees. Our subcommittee will be listed out there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our great chair.
Thank you, Rebecca, and Vanessa and Nicole as well for your contributions. So I just wanted to add that as a full council, we've really only been in business since around March. So we haven't had a whole 12 months to really work on these issues. It's been 6 months, and I'm just really thrilled that we've been able to get to as much substance and as many important topics related to this as we have. So we're not done with this subject. We will continue working on many aspects of access to capital for next year, particularly bank loans. There's a lot of work that we think can be improved there. But at this time, I'd like to turn to the council and see if there are any questions or any comments regarding these recommendations. Because again, legally, we have to take a vote as a council on approving them. So, and sorry that I have to kind of have my back to the rest of our group, but does anyone have any comments or issues, questions? Okay, then I will just ask for an overall vote of approval of this committee's recommendations. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have passed unanimously the committee's recommendations. With that, I'd like to now turn to our second committee report, which is the Committee on STEM, Entrepreneurship, and Encouragement. So, Rebecca? I'm sorry. Monica, sorry. You're royal. I'm sorry.
Good morning again. First, I'd like to acknowledge our committee. So we have Sandy and Marcia and Shalonda and myself. We've had 2 roundtables this year. We had one in Baltimore along with the WeBank Conference. And then we had one in St. Petersburg, Florida, where we were pleased to have Senator Rubio actually join us for the event. So he got to hear firsthand about what we're doing in Florida and what the issues are. It is my pleasure to make the report on behalf of our committee, so let's dive in. So the first thing that we're worried about or we're concerned with is the SBIR and the STTR programs. They're coordinated by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Business Innovation, which gives us the Business Innovation Research, SBIR, and the Small Business Technology, STTR programs that include 11 federal agencies that competitively fund small businesses to meet the government's research and development needs. So we cut across a lot of different organizations at the same time with these programs. The SBIR program has a 4-fold objective: to stimulate technology innovation, to meet federal research and development needs, to foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by women and socially and economically disadvantaged people, and to increase the private sector commercialization of innovation derived from federal research and development funding. How many of you are already familiar with the SBIR and STTR? Oh, good. It's always good to preach to the choir. Central to these programs is the expansion of our public-private partnerships, so that more of what we do internally in the government makes itself out to the commercial market. That includes joint ventures between small businesses and nonprofit research institutions. The unique feature of the STTR program is the requirement for small businesses to formally collaborate and research with Phase 1 and Phase 2 in Phase 2 research. STTR, most important role, is to bridge the gap between performance of basic science and commercialization of resulting innovations. We experienced this and we heard a lot of testimony about this down in St. Petersburg. People that were doing basic research and still trying to find the traction they needed within the federal programs to be able to bring that to market. I acknowledge their struggles and wish we could all just promote them forward. We're going to work with historically black colleges and universities. As you know, the President signed an executive order on February 28, 2017 to promote historically black colleges and universities. It's the initiative to promote excellence and innovation at SBCUs. which urges the federal government programs and initiatives where SBCUs can represent and develop ways to have increased participation. Out of that, we came up with a policy recommendation that covers both the STTR, SBIR, and working with the SC. I feel like I should just play bingo. Someone yell bingo when I get to the end. Policy recommendation: increase the participation in technology innovation under the SBIR program among individuals conducting research at minority and Hispanic serving institutions. SBCUs are the #1 producer of underrepresented students, including women of color, women in the STEM workforce. Included are the 9 HBCUs that conducted R&D for the SBA, SBIR Road Tour and developed coordinated efforts with other federal agencies, including NASA and the National Science Foundation. We'll be meeting with NASA this afternoon to dive into this deeper. That's our first recommendation that we'll work on next year. The second one is best practices with the National Science Foundation. This year, the National Science Foundation required a 3-page application for entrepreneurs and startups applying for Phase 1 funding under the America's Seed Fund. This requirement provides startups and small business applicants with the initial review regarding whether the application meets the program objectives of their application within 3 weeks. Denied applicants are also provided with feedback on their Phase 0 applications. One of the things we learned when we were in Florida is Florida does not have a Phase 0 program. So you can imagine you do all of that work, you put in that whole application, only to find out you are denied without that initial review that we're going to recommend. So our policy recommendation reads as this. Given the feedback from the NWBC has received at our STEM roundtables regarding the onerous SBIR and STTR application processes, SBA and other federal agencies should explore implementation of a Phase 0 program for all SBIR and STTR applications. Our next recommendation is about the FAST Partnership Program. FAST stands for Federal and State Technology Partnership Programs. How many of you are familiar with FAST? It provides $125,000 grants to entities, including nonprofits, universities, incubators, and accelerators in states to establish a 1-year SBIR, STTR outreach and training program intended to facilitate more awards within their state. The SBA awards the competitive grants to entities taking special consideration of those located in states that have historically lacked awards. Only one entity per state is allowed, and it must have the governor's signature to do so. So we have a recommendation we'd like to make. SBA should eliminate the arbitrary requirement of obtaining the governor's signature and allow multiple entities throughout the state to apply for the FAST award. This formality creates an unnecessary administrative burden and often causes applicants to miss filing deadlines and consequently the opportunity for federal funding. Additionally, the competition will incentivize these entities to craft more innovative game plans to counsel entrepreneurs, especially women and underserved populations that require special course content. So in my state alone, if you think the difference between Pensacola and the Panhandle in Miami, we have 2 different universes. So it would just be cool to allow states to be able to see what kind of creative programs we can have coming in out of the state. We are about innovation, of course. The next part is U.S. inventors and U.S. patents. And I had the pleasure of talking with Elizabeth Doherty from the USPTO, and she was keying us into a lot of the work that they're doing and a lot of the collaboration that we can do going forward. We're really excited about our future opportunities with you. We know that there have been gains in female participation in science and engineering occupations and entrepreneurship, but it's not enough. Most women who are coming into science or any STEM education come in like I did through healthcare. We need to have more women coming in through the other sciences as well. and technology. In fulfillment of public law number 115-273, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issued a progress and potential, a profile of women investors on U.S. patents in February 2019. And they will issue an update to that next year at the same time, correct? Thank you. According to the report, the number of patents with at least one woman inventor increased about 7% from 1980 to 21% in 2016. Despite this increase, the percentage of patent owners that are women, or annual women inventor rate, reached only 12% by 2016. We need to do better. We have a policy recommendation we would like to make. The USPTO must fulfill the second mandate of the Public Law 1115-273 and provide legislative recommendations to boost the participation from underrepresented populations in entrepreneurship activities and the patenting process. The USPTO should also issue a report on the top 5 factors that lead patent application denials for women entrepreneurs. The resulting data, along with the findings from the 2019 Progress and Potential Report, should serve as a basis for a new series of trainings on intellectual property protection and process to successfully apply for a patent. SBA, Women's Business Centers, could receive additional funding to conduct these trainings. Our next recommendation is about Ascent. This year, SBA introduced Ascent, an online learning platform tailored for women small business owners who want to scale and expand their businesses. We had the privilege of getting to play with it first, and that was a lot of fun. The Ascent's purpose is to provide women business owners with additional resources they need to set and achieve their goals. The service is available online and with the flexibility to target information when they need it most. So when you need to learn about funding, you can do it right on your phone. Our policy recommendation for Ascent: provide SBIR and STTR training modules as a function of the Ascent platform so that women entrepreneurs in STEM fields have the proper tools to grow their businesses and compete in the federal marketplace. Training should also include how to apply for an SBIR grant. Next, an area that's really close to my heart. The NWBC funded study, Women-Owned Participation in SBIR and STTR programs, and things that we need to consider going forward so that we can increase our participation. Here are the questions that we think need to be asked going forward to give us the information we need. 1. Does the percentage of women-owned business firms in the SBIR, STTR programs reflect the current state of overall women-owned advanced technology firms? How does it compare with the current number of women graduating in STEM fields? Number 2, has there been a change to the SBIR and STTR awardees over the past 5 to 10 years in terms of the number of women-owned companies, number of women in leadership positions, C-level, and the number of women listed as principal investigators? Does anyone have that information yet?
Yeah,
If you do, we'd love to have it. The third one, do women resubmit SBIR and STTR proposals at a different rate than men do? How do resubmission rates compare? Number 4, how do the SBIR and STTR participating agencies currently approach outreach to women and others in underserved communities, and how do they track and measure their activities? Number 5, how many women are participating in the programs, accelerators getting support by FAST and GAFC awardees? Does it translate into applications? 6, how do women and companies compare in the transition from phase 1 to phase 2? What are the top 5 or 6 industries of women business owners awardees? What are the top 5 to 6 business industries that male business owners get as awardees? Are they similar? Are they different? Are the industries the same regardless of gender or not? How many total proposals per year come from women-owned versus men-owned businesses in the last 5 years? How long does the decision-making process take for an SBIR program manager to review the proposals? And how many women are on the reviewing team for an SBIR? And how many are men? We'd like the answers to those so that we can increase our participation in the SBIR programs and the research funding that comes from it. Our last recommendation has to do with education. To encourage more female participation in STEM, community leaders must help young women identify how their career choice could enable them to solve real-world problems and that have deep personal meanings. As noted in the NWBC roundtables, early and consistent exposure is key to attracting females to these underrepresented fields. One of the things we found when we were in St. Pete is a lot of the female entrepreneurs were saying we should be teaching business skills and technology skills just like we teach reading and arithmetic and all the other basics, because they're basics of our world today. So we have a proposal. Our recommendation is, as proposed by HR 1665, the Building Blocks of STEM Act, NSF grants to increase the participation of underrepresented populations in STEM fields should be used for research into various subjects regarding female students in pre-kindergarten through elementary, including the role of teachers and caregivers in encouraging or discouraging participation of students in STEM activities, and the type of STEM activities that encourage greater participation by such students. In other words, get your hands on the stuff and play. NSF grants to research computer science education and computation thinking should be used to support development and implementation of various tools and models for teaching and learning, including developing and ordering gender-inclusive computer science enrichment programs, and acquainting female students in pre-kindergarten through elementary schools with careers in computer science. Thank you, and we would appreciate your feedback on other things we can do creatively to make sure that we get more kids involved in STEM, especially young women. Thank you so much.
Well, there's obviously a lot that needs to be done to encourage more women to get involved in STEM-related companies. And the whole area of National Science Foundation grants and SBIRs is really important to helping women small businesses with that phase 0, which is you just submit 3 pages to see if what your business is really aligns with what NSF gives out grants to. It's a very detailed, comprehensive, and lengthy process. So that will help more people understand right up front whether that's the right avenue for them to look for outside funding versus spending a whole lot of cycles if they're in the wrong category, if you will. So that, among many of the other recommendations, I think are really going to help women and really going to help us look at how are women participation rates in those grant awards, as well as patents. And in some of the roundtables that we had, particularly the one in Baltimore, you know, we began hearing things like at the elementary, all the way up to the college level, what kinds of support can schools and universities and even faculty have in encouraging women who are majoring in those kinds of fields that, yes, they don't have to know everything, because surely there are many men that are majoring in those fields that just decide they can do it even though they may only know 10% of what they're about to do. So we need to give women the same kind of encouragement. You don't need to know every single thing.
Yeah,
before
no
you
worries.
decide to do
I'll sip a little bit and
a
then I'll
startup
toss it.
in one of those fields. So with that, I'd like to just open it up for the council if there are any questions or comments about the recommendations or any aspects of the recommendations for our STEM subcommittee. We've been talking a lot about all of these, so it's not like they've heard these for the first time. So with that, I'd like to call for a voice vote in approval. All in favor of approving the recommendations, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, so all of those recommendations will be sent forth following our meeting today, and I'd like to now turn this table over to Jessica Flynn, who will talk about the recommendations from our Committee on Rural Female Entrepreneurship.
Anything else? No, I don't have any questions.
Hello, I'm Jessica, and I would like to introduce the other members of our subcommittee, Mary Grace, Barb, Bonnie, and Rebecca, and we are representing Florida, New Hampshire, Michigan, Iowa, and Idaho, just to make it confusing for y'all. There'll be a test to see if people can tell the difference on that.
Put them on the thing?
All right, I just wanna thank the committee for the work. We are probably the most recently formed and coalesced subcommittee, and we have put together 8 different recommendations that really focus on primarily the women's business centers, and then also looking at some data and looking at different platforms and ways to market resources and opportunities to rural communities. Because we all feel and recognize that when you have women business owners that can scale and grow in rural communities, that impact and that ripple effect can often be felt a lot more than it may be able to be felt in urban communities. So one of the things that informed the recommendations that we were making was the first roundtable we held in Pella earlier this year. And thanks to your committee member for hosting that. And that served as the basis, along with the Rural Women's Entrepreneurship Report that was pulled together by the council itself. That's available on the website if you haven't looked at that yet. It pulled together existing data out there to try and connect some dots about what was informing and impacting rural women's entrepreneurship. So we looked at things like broadband, which is going to be a topic that we'll discuss a bit more in the coming year, and also the types of support systems that women look to, whether it's family or community, to really be able to scale and grow their businesses. So again, I'm going to jump into the 8 different recommendations, and the first one's really focused on the women's business centers. So according to the Rural Women's Entrepreneurship Report from the NWBC, which relies on the American Community Survey data, the 10 most rural states are in order.
Oh, thank you.
People on this. I did not know this. Maine, Vermont, West Virginia, Mississippi, Montana, Arkansas, South Dakota, Kentucky, Alabama, and New Hampshire. Now, this is where we really focused in at looking at, with those rural states, where do they have a WBC and resource presence? Well, Mississippi and West Virginia don't have WBC grants. And to note, South Carolina and Alaska also don't have WBCs, and they're 33% and 34% rural respectively. Maine, Vermont, Montana, Arkansas, South Dakota, Kentucky, and New Hampshire each just have one WBC grant. All have just one site except for Maine, which has 3. So this really coalesces down into 20% of the most rural states in the country don't have WBC grants, and 70% just have 1. So for comparison, the state of New York has 8 grants and 10 respective sites. And so this really kind of informs some of the recommendations we're making related to women's business centers. So number one, we really believe that the SBA should consult with the Association of Women Business Centers, of which we have a representative on our committee, when announcing a funding opportunity for a new WBC grant. And also that the SBA should make a national market scan to determine where there are existing entrepreneurial support services. Because there are some that are already organized and energized in rural communities for the purposes of identifying grant opportunities. So these market scans can really help make sure that those WBC announcements of funding opportunities have more successful candidates at the get-go. Speaking personally, in Idaho, it took 3 announcements in order to have a successful submission for a WBC. And we did finally get one this past year, thanks to all the hard work. Kathy McShane was definitely part of that, and along with Senator Risch, who is the senator that appointed me or recommended me to be appointed to the council. The second policy recommendation has to do with the Office of Women's Business Ownership. And we really recommend that any supplemental grant money be dedicated towards high-performing WBCs for the specific purpose of providing accessible off-site trainings to underserved rural communities identified through that market scan. The agency is already authorized to do this and use unawarded amount to increase the funding of existing women's business centers. So an example of this could be the WBC, which is located in Nampa, Idaho, not Napa, but Nampa, Idaho, just outside the Boise metro area. Nampa has a population of 93,000. Well, that WBC, if they met the requirements, would use supplemental funding to fund trainings in Weiser, Idaho, which is about an hour north and has a population of 5,000. And we'll talk a little bit about how going into these smaller communities could really help have an impact there versus keeping the resources in urban areas. We also recognize that the SBA continues to overcrowd the resources in urban areas. And here comes the acronym soup. The placement of district offices, SBDCs, WBCs, scores, emerging leader sites in just one metropolitan area is an inefficient use of funds. And the practice limits the federal government's ability to support entrepreneurial growth in rural communities. In future fiscal years, we recommend that priority for new WBC grants should be given to rural communities that are identified through that market scan that we mentioned before settling on duplicative efforts in urban hubs. States like Mississippi and West Virginia should have first consideration. Additionally, private sector entrepreneurial support systems tend to congregate in metropolitan areas as well. When the council visited Pella, Iowa, which is a population of just over 10,000, in March of this year, members saw that there was a virtual non-existence of entrepreneurial resource networks. And they mentioned the women business owners shared that if they needed assistance, they needed to travel to Des Moines, a population of over 200,000, in order to connect with it. Now, moving into some of the economic data reports and how we might be able to get more data to inform our recommendations going forward, we looked at what the WBCs are mandated to report to Congress. And right now, that's the number of individuals receiving assistance, the number of startup business concerns formed, the gross receipts of those assisted concerns, the employment increases and decreases of assisted concerns, and to the maximum extent possible, increases or decreases in profits of assisted concerns. So our recommendation is that Congress should amend these requirements to also include the average duration of assistance, and if these women intend to return for more assistance. And secondly, the regions in which the new concerns are located. Are they rural? And to what percentage of rurality, hard word to say, rurality are they located? And will they continue to operate and invest in that community? We're starting to see really great anecdotes and stories of businesses that once they get success, they're not necessarily leaving and going to urban areas. They're staying in their rural communities to have an impact. So being able to track that would be extremely helpful. Also, another recommendation, when taking into consideration the data reported by the Women Business Centers, Congress and the SBA should measure a WBC's reach, scaled relative to the capabilities, circumstance, and population in that region. For example, reaching 10 women in Gilsum, New Hampshire, about 800 population, could generate much more economic growth in that community than reaching, say, 10 women in Boston, Massachusetts, or Chicago. We want to be able to have a greater impact for those small businesses. Our sixth recommendation is sharing of data. So we recommend that the SBA share the data it receives from the Women Business Centers with the public and with the Association of Women Business Centers. Access to this data will allow the association to better serve and support WBCs. Association of Women Business Centers should also be able to view the ETNIS, EDMIS, the Entrepreneurial Management Development System, which is essentially a repository for all the client activity data. So we can look for some of those trends and peaks and try to narrow in our future recommendations. Moving on to looking at where we see a lot of growth in rural entrepreneurship has to do with ag-focused businesses. And that's one of the areas of greatest increase that we see for women business ownership in rural areas. And so there's a lot happening with the USDA and entrepreneurship in agriculture. There's the Rural Business Investment Program, Rural Micro Entrepreneur Assistance Program, and there is actually a collaboration between the SBA and the USDA in crafting a Rural Strong Toolkit for women-owned small businesses. Related to all of that, we're looking at and recommending that the SBA and USDA co-fund and develop what we're calling an online playbook of case studies on rural entrepreneurship. Universities, local chambers of commerce, nonprofits, corporations, and others who can contribute valuable success stories to showcase. So we all recognize that despite all of government regulations and support, oftentimes a lot of success comes from those shared stories of success, and been there, done that, and here's how we did it. The empirical data and best practices could be used to create new trainings and resource programs in these underserved areas. Due to the vast separation from urban hubs and federal resources that strengthen them, rural communities are especially compelled to identify the most cost-efficient and creative solutions to economic hardships. And our final recommendation relates to Ascent, which was mentioned by another one of the committees. This online learning platform for women entrepreneurs who want to scale and expand their business. We recommend strongly that SBA focus its marketing efforts on rural communities that lack the existing entrepreneurial support. Agency district offices could target these business contacts during distribution of promotional materials and sign-up solicitations. And also having a local market scan to figure out where there are gaps and where there are partners they could help market this program through. As I close out with the 8 recommendations, we're also looking to get more input on these recommendations when we host our next Rural Roundtable. That's going to be October 9th in Boise, Idaho. Senator Risch will be joining us as well, and we're really excited to hear input on these recommendations, but also talk about how we can delve into and look at some of the broadband issues that we know our rural entrepreneurs are dealing with.
Thank you very much, Jess. I think you can all see that we're really not shy about putting our recommendations and suggestions forward. And we're going to continue to not be shy as we look at next year, following up on all the recommendations that we make this year to make sure we try to get as many enacted as we can. So with this subcommittee's recommendation, let me just open it up to our council board members for any last questions or comments about them before we vote. Anyone? So thank you. All in favor of approving these recommendations, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? And of course, the ayes have it. Thank you. It's been quite a fire hose, I'm sure you will all agree, and we're not going to let up the pressure on that. We'll be spending the afternoon meeting with various members of Congress and Senate on the committees that our committees align to, so they start hearing about what we're going to be proposing later on this year, as well as getting their recommendations of things that they are hearing from their constituents that could then go toward what we're going to focus on next year. I know that we've got a few people that have asked for questions and comments. So Nina, let me turn it over to you so that you can field those, and then we'll open it up for the audience here.
So as I mentioned earlier, we will not be taking any public comments or questions that you have for the council members. We will leave the record open for a period of 5 business days. So if you have any additional comments, please feel free to send them to Ashley Judah, who's on the Federal Register notice. Do we have any of the commenters that previously requested time in the audience? Great. Shelley?
My name is Karen.
Oh, Karen.
First, I want to thank the National Women's Business Council for the very important work you do on behalf of women entrepreneurs throughout the United States. My name is Karen Maples. I'm a female entrepreneur and have been actively engaged with many of the cornerstone member organizations of the NWBC since the early 2000s. I am the founder and chief catalyst of Future Forward, a nonprofit with a mission to unleash the economic power of innovation led by women. I'd like to start by highlighting a few important statistics. First, women are starting well over 1,000 net new businesses every day. Two, 53% of PhDs are awarded to women, yet only 12% of recognized innovators in the United States are women. There is a tremendous untapped potential in these numbers. The skills and perspectives of women are crucial to economic growth, job creation, and U.S. leadership and innovation. We urgently need to accelerate the number of women-owned firms at the forefront of emerging and advanced technologies. We need to support women scientists in amplifying the impact of their research through entrepreneurship and patents. And we need to do a better job of bringing together women scientists with women business owners to create new paradigms of collaboration. At a high level, here are some of the challenges. I hear from many women business owners in legacy, non-STEM businesses that they know they should be doing something with emerging technologies, but they don't know what to do or how to get started. Based on our work with university tech transfer offices throughout the country, we know women scientists and faculty are not founding university startups at the same rate as men. And as previously mentioned, research, there's a lot of research about the number of women who are getting patents. The stat that I'm referencing today is from the Institute for Women's Policy Research that shows that fewer than 20% of all U.S. patents today list a woman as an inventor. Full participation in the innovation ecosystem is imperative for all women-owned firms because emerging and advanced technologies and patents are two major sources of business growth that are underutilized by women. So how do we address these challenges? I'd like to share a few examples of initiatives that are underway, trying to keep within less than four minutes. But I do want to say that we have a lot of other examples beyond the ones I'm going to reference today. There's tremendous work being done, and we need to think about how we scale for impact. First of all, to support women's engagement with emerging technologies, we at Future Forward have launched an emerging tech collaboratory. We are creating a resource for women who are actively seeking to leverage emerging technologies to create new products and new lines of business. To support academic and science entrepreneurship, Equalize 2020 will address the disparity in women scientists starting companies. It will be hosted by Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. And we are already starting outreach to women scientists across the country so that they can participate in our efforts to get more women scientists and women faculty to consider patenting and to start companies. To support the patent challenge, we at Future Forward created the Keys to the Future Award, which is in honor of Mary Dixon Keys, who's the first woman to receive a U.S. patent. And we present that award at the Enterprising Women Conference, which will be held in 2020 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on March the 24th and the 26th. And finally, I'd also like to call attention to pending legislation, the IDEA Act of 2019. The IDEA Act stands for Inventor Diversity for Economic Advancement. It's co-sponsored by Senators Tillis and Corona and Representatives Velasquez and Stivers. This legislation would require the USPTO to collect, on a voluntary basis, demographic data from inventors and publish that data annually and produce a biennial report evaluating the data. The IDEA Act represents an important next step to 2018's Success Act, which required the USPTO to produce a report based on existing data and make recommendations. And USPTO has done a phenomenal job in holding roundtables around the country and gathering input. And so we're very excited about the collaboration we're getting from the USPTO. As everyone in this room knows, data collection and the ability to build awareness is critical to our ability to make inroads. So in terms of a couple of call to actions, I would like to ask everyone here to support the passage of the IDEA Act. I would also like for us to consider policy initiatives and calls for legislation to make it easier for women-owned firms to collaborate with federal labs, in addition to SBIRs and STTIRs. And I would really like to thank you so much for allowing me to make these comments today.
Thank you very much, Karen. Do you have anyone else that would like to make a public comment or have a question for the council? In the back. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's my fellow Miamian up front, Ms. Nina. My name is Lisa McGill, and I'm going to apologize in advance if my question or comment is redundant. But I thought I did hear you talk about STEM education in the elementary school. So I'm at FIU President's Council member, and I served on the Student Access and Success Advisory Council. And one of the things that came out of the council was bringing STEM education to children at younger ages. There was a gentleman who was on the council, talked about how he kind of stumbled into it himself, was mentoring children, and he basically said to us, if we don't start in elementary school, they're not going to be ready for math that's required. Now, I've had the privilege of successfully navigating my own daughter, K through 12, public education, and she's in college. But in your policy recommendation, how will you help address this in real terms so that these girls have the ability to get that type of education early so that they can have a piece of what's coming with technology? Thank you.
Better than I remember before it was like right in the front. So with our numbers was
Thank you for that question, and you're right, it is already included, but I think we will continue to further develop what it is. But to answer your question, at the highest level, one of the things that Monica discussed and mentioned is part of our recommendation is that similar to math and reading, that STEM, that technology is integrated into the curriculum early, so that becomes a requirement. That's a part of our recommendation. The other part that we know is some of the stuff is stereotypical, as I mentioned in the beginning, but part of that light and that spark happened because I was able to see how technology applied and think in other ways that I was interested. And so it wasn't just saying, hey, take this capacitor and do these things. We had examples where people came in, the founder of MCM at that time, and you had young women who were interested in brands and clothing, who told us about the technology of things that we were already, we were already interested. And so part of our recommendation goes into getting it in early and making sure it's delivered in ways that we will embrace it.
Thank you, and I'd like to Sandy also made a comment on this. She's quite passionate about this as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate the question. Sandy Robert with the Association for Women in Science. A couple of things come to mind. One is we often look at trying to get girls into engineering or girls into math. But actually, if you really want to excite young women about getting in to work in these fields, I think a much more effective door into it is saying, you want to help bring water to sub-Saharan deserts. Use that, get them excited about what they can do with it, and then help them see the skills that they need to do it. Another thing that I think is particularly important and impactful for younger girls is to help them see role models. There's so many resources out there now, slide decks of 100 women scientists, and I'm very excited to have seen in my Twitter feed maybe 3 months ago that for the first time in our nation's history, over 40% of young girls are looking first at women in science as successful scientists instead of men.
Do we have Shelly, Tammy, or Bianca here today?
So I'm going to come up front because I want to make sure that you can see me. My name is Tammy Williams, and I'm the founder and president of Envision to Be Well, powered by She's It. And She's It stands for Social Health Empowerment through IT. As a woman entrepreneur, and as a black woman in technology who doesn't oversee other people's technology systems, but by the way, I did that in an earlier corporate career from which I was fired from. I was head of global education, corporate communications, and change management of a global semiconductor services company, over 90% male. And I was fired in April of 2017 and decided to continue with something that I had written down in April of 2014 in my happy place, Cape May, New Jersey. However, I knew that building a company from scratch in technology, a woman, a black woman, a baby boomer, proud to say that, and someone that was not trained. I am not an engineer, I am not a technologist, but what I do know how to do is to pull together a team that can bring visions to life. So I knew that this was going to challenge me in ways that I hadn't experienced before. Now, early with our company, we scoured the literature to see what was missing with respect to women and fulfillment of their lives. And what we found was a tremendous lack of what we now call knowledge, support, access, and autonomy. We refer to that as KISSA. It is the backbone of our social health empowerment mission, which is to democratize 360-degree wellness, well-being, and social health empowerment. But it's no different for entrepreneurs. Wellness to entrepreneurs means having the knowledge, support, access, and autonomy to begin and grow their ideas into companies. Much of what everyone has been saying here today. And while there is more knowledge that is available now about starting and growing a business, I don't think that women entrepreneurs lack the knowledge in the stricter sense, as the internet is the go-to place for just about everything. The two biggest social health empowerment pillars lacking in some senses or some cases, truly missing for women entrepreneurs, is support and access to the resources. The biggest challenge of that being capital. And I can say that because right now we are in the process of raising $1 million for the business to take it to the next level. We have self-funded the business to the tune of over $350,000. That is not easy. It is time for some OPM, which is other people's money. Support. Women-led groups that are out there, such as Novo Bank, with Elevate Network, and many others, they're helpful to women on their journeys, but I want you to consider this. Women receive so little funding from VCs, and we've heard about this, or other forms of capital, yet membership in some of these organizations and things that we have to do, they cost money. Being in a country club costs money. Being on the golf course, it costs money. The list goes on and on, but most of the time, what we do, it comes out of our personal pockets. I'm sure that many of us can attest to that. And access to capital, the access, would be the #1 issue, as both the percentage of VC funds going to women-founded companies is stagnant, or is even declining a bit, and the percentage of seed funding itself is diminishing, leaving women with less access to funding at critical seed startup phases. And so many of the businesses can't even get past those startup or seed phases. I want to keep in mind the 4 minutes, so I'm not going to read everything that I have here, but I do want to say this. In 2018, in the U.S., female founders raised $2.88 billion last year, split across 482 teams. Now, this is according to Pitchfork and Allgrades, the organization supporting women in venture capital and startups. But that's 2.2%. 2.2% of the $130 billion total in venture capital invested over the year. The exact same percentage that Fortune reported for 2017. Within that 2.2%, Black women founders received a horrific 1% of VC funding. Of the top 10 women-founded companies, only one was a Black woman whose $60 million raise was 25% of the top woman-owned company who raised $250 million. I have just one thing to say about raising money. And, you know, the vaping situation that's going on right now is horrific. And Juul, the maker and distributor of electronic nicotine vaporizers, a male, he received $12.8 billion in funding in December of 2018. And you see what is happening today. There's a ripple effect. And unfortunately, what is going to happen is that as a result of what is going on with the vaping, now you have other companies, just like the opioid crisis, you have other companies that are going to rise up because they have to address these things. This is not the cycle that we want. And so I just wanted to come up. I came in from Pennsylvania, I'm in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I just wanted to come today and be able to stand here and tell you just the struggle is real. And I am hoping that what you do passes. If you want me on the front lines, I will be there with the placards and everything else because it's time. It's just time.
Thank you, Tammy.
We have time for one more.
Hello, my name is Monica. I'm from New York, Westchester to be exact. And I'm here because I'm looking to start my own business. I identify as a Black woman millennial. So I'm here to pose these questions. In regards to research and programs specifically on millennial women owners, what does this organization do for that community? What methods are used to engage them? And are there mentorship and fellowship programs for this community? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. I think there are a lot of people like yourself around the country that probably echo the same thing. So while the council is an advisory organization, we're not a programmatic one, so we don't offer programs and resources. But instead, we, as we're formulating the recommendations you heard this morning, are looking to include all women business founders. We're not looking at particular age groups or industry sectors, necessarily. I'm happy to talk to you offline about some of the resources that I know are available to startup entrepreneurs in New York, so we can have that conversation later.
Y si tengo tu tarjeta. No sabía que ella siempre venía.
Marsha.
Mejor, pero eso cambia tan fuerte. Nice to see you. Thank you. Bye.
Liz, I wanted to congratulate you for trying to make a sense of all the problems that we as women have to deal with. So thank you for that. And I would like to make one request, and your question about resources made me think, there are lots of programs now for women and girls. There are lots of programs about for access to capital. Could we not, as a organization, put together a list? Maybe that would be something that would be really helpful to our constituents, to have a program where we have shared the list of resources for access to capital, as well as for STEM, for the agriculture, I don't know. There are enough programs yet, but that's our job to change that. So it's just a recommendation.
Terrific, Marcia, and I think that is a really good segue to mention that we're adding another committee to our board's focus next year. So we're going to continue the work that the three committees have done to date, and as they go into the next round of recommendations. But the fourth new committee is a communications committee, and I'm pleased to announce that Mary Grace is going to chair that. Nicole Covert is going to be on that committee. Shalonda is also going to be on that committee. And part of the mission of that committee is to be able to communicate more widely into the marketplace, both about the recommendations that we're making, the progress that we'll be having in getting those recommendations enacted, the outreach plans that we have in terms of doing future roundtables, town hall meetings, and we're going to instigate some webinars where we invite people from the communities as well as from organizations or federal agencies that have important programs in place but are kind of secret. And we know that the government is really not in the habit of being good marketers. And so our role is to try to call attention to what's there and help them redirect their resources so that the constituents who need them will actually learn about them. And so I'm excited that the Communications Committee is going to sort of supplement what the other three committees are doing in communicating that in a more effective and more ongoing way into both the business community as well as to the ecosystem partners, whether they're banks or local departments of economic development on a county by county basis. So we look forward to that group's efforts. And before we close, is there any other business, Nina, that we need to cover today? Not at this moment. This is good. So I'd like to personally thank all of the members of the council because I think it's been an incredible 6 months that we've done really a tremendous set of recommendations. And I know this group is very well suited to getting things done. So we're not a research organization, and we don't do PowerPoint at all, and therefore I think we can get a lot accomplished, and that's really our goal. You know, that's really our goal, is to make a difference, and you can be assured that we are going to be on the doorstep of people who are at the receiving end of these recommendations to make sure it happens, and we'll be reporting back next year throughout the year. So please do follow us. Thank you to all who came today. Thank you for those who posed questions and comments. Karen, nice to see you. Her and I go way back to our early entrepreneurial days. We're still young, but they were earlier back then. As I mentioned, we really want your continued dialogue. So don't let today be your first experience with us and your last. Let it be the first of many. And please tell people you know and tell people who you think might be inclined to start a business that we are here to support all of the women. Thank you very much.
Liz, on behalf of all your women, we thank you for your trailblazer leadership style. This woman is relentless about women and entrepreneur, and thank you for leading our charge on
Thank you.
Get away from you.
October 1.